Hello and welcome to About Yahweh's Business. I don't think that's recording. Today we're going to go over Bible verses. What they should be. What are they? What do they really mean? Some of these Bible verses that people have got mistaken and they don't know what's really going on. And the reason why they don't know what's going on, it's not working. Make it work. Now it's recording. All right. Judge not. There are many words that here are not just one, right? When we take and we go into Scripture and we say, judge not, Matthew 7:1. Judge not that ye be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged, and with what measure you meet, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou that the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but consider not the beam that is in thine own eye? Now, we can't take this and say, well, now you can't judge me, because when we take this and say you can't judge me, guess what happens? Well, we can't judge. We can't judge anything. The problem is when we take a word, and we have to understand, when you see L-O-R-D, it was changed, right? We can agree to that. When you see Jesus, it was changed, right? We know for a fact that these are not the original things from Scripture. So knowing that, we can say, okay, well, if that was changed and this was turned and that was moved, what does it mean? Now, going off that same concept is if we see a word like judge, we can't say, okay, well, judge is just everything and it all means the same thing and it's all the same deal. Because when we read Scriptures, it doesn't fit, just like this. Judge not, that ye be not judged, right? Well, but wait a minute, it says we are to judge. And then we look up the word and we see G33, or 2919, right? And it means to what? Mentally judge. Implication, try to condemn, try to punish. Oh, wait a minute. Now we're not to punish others. Not to punish them. Right? Now a lot of people will say, okay, well, we ain't supposed to punish them anyway. We have to make everything fit. The problem is with most religious people, with most religions, with most sitting in my book room and reading the Bible, what becomes is it's not really what doctrine. It's not sound doctrine, right? And we see many people today, and they say, well, this is not what this says. It says this, right? Strong's G2919, crino, condemn, punish. All right. So what does that mean? We can't punish anybody? We can't do anything, right? See, when we're not very careful and we don't take and put everything together, we can't judge nobody, we can't punish nobody, we can't do nothing. Our hands are tied. Somebody commits murder, well, we can't do nothing about it. Sorry, I guess we're just going to have a world full of murderers. But that ain't what the Scripture teaches us, right? That's why the Torah is so important. It's not just a thing to say, I'm Torah observant. And we shouldn't be just Torah observant. That means you're just observing. You're just kind of watching, right? We should actually be a what? A scriptural doer. We're doing what the Scripture teaches us to do, right? If we understand the beginning where he says Dan will judge, when we understand what's really going on, we say, oh, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to judge accordingly. And we need somebody who is a judge, right? Because if not, then why do we have judges? All these people sitting up in the corners of town, and you have the courthouse, how did they get there? Did we go against Scripture again? Is everything we do against Scripture? No. We see that Moshe judged, right? Proverbs 31:9, H8199. Shapchat, which means to argue. decide, defend. That's where you get your so-called lawyers, right? They're arguing the case. They're saying, hey, this is the way it really was. Psalms 68 and 5. H1781, the Daily, an advocate. Who is Yeshua? Our advocate, right? He's one sitting there saying, I got this. We're going to use my blood and this is going to be all right. But not in every case. Only in cases where the blood applies. Ezekiel 23 and 36 is H853. F, entity, right? Ezra 7:25, H1782, Dayan, corresponding, dealing with, written communication, having the responsibility. Now, to a lot of people, this ain't going to mean much, but to those people who are really searching for truth, for those people who understand, well, what does it mean between this word and that word? For those people that think they read the Bible and they don't really get it, right? You ever read a chapter or read a verse or read a book and you just don't get it and you're like, well, I don't get that. I don't understand that. Or you read something and it just doesn't quite fit, does it? The reason it doesn't fit because it doesn't fit. We've been blanketed with words like judge, with L-O-R-D, with God, and it just blankets everything. Have no other gods before me. Okay? I am the Elohim. I am Yahweh. Now see, if we're not careful when we read into this, it sparks confusion because, well, what gives? Have no other gods before me. And then you got verses like John 10:34, where he says that you are gods. Now we have a problem. Because he says there is no other gods. There is none beside him. But there's people that's got false doctrine that's saying, oh, they think they're gods. They think they're fallen angels. They think they're this. They think they're that. How does that fit? It doesn't. The problem is what we have to understand. The enemy is crafty. The enemy is very deceitful. He didn't deceive everybody just by being stupid. Just by, usually he deceives a bunch of people who thinks they're Christian, who thinks they're biblical, who thinks they're seeking Yahweh. But Yahweh says what? My sheep hear my voice. If you keep going after doctrine after doctrine after doctrine, and it doesn't make no sense, it probably means you're not seeking Yahweh. You're not seeking him for humbleness. You're not seeking him for truthfulness. You're seeking because you want to be Superman. You want to be Wonder Woman. You want to be a Marvel comic. And sadly, this is a lot of people's mentality. They grasp onto this because their life was terrible, because things was bad for them, because whatever reason, and they just want to be a superhero, right? John 10:34 and 35. Let's just go there real quick, because as of lately, there's been a real problem here with people saying that they think they're gods. And they won't really hardly admit it until you really make them admit it. And then they say, well, I'm not going to say I'm a god. I'm going to say I'm an Elohim. Wordplay, it's the same thing. If you're going to say you're something, right? I'm a man. To say anything different than that is playing. It's deceitfulness, right? Yeshua answered them. Now, in the King James Version, it says Jesus, right? Now, we all know that's not his name. You can say what you want. You can say there's power, and you can say all kinds of things, but those are words. The true Messiah's name was Yeshua. So if we can agree right here that's a fact, then we can go on. But if we can't agree that's a fact, then we have more problems than even going any farther, right? So we have to understand when things are changed, they're changed. That means something needs to be brought back to the Hebrew, not the Greek, not the Egyptian, not what Pharaoh said, what Yeshua said, what Yahweh said, what was handed down from the Most High, right? So I'm saying that to let you know, right here, you know that is not Jesus. It actually should be Yeshua, right? And most scholars, people with any knowledge, would agree with that. Answer them, is it not written in your law, I said, ye are gods? Hold up, wait a minute, right here. Stop, hold the phone. Somebody call Vicky Vale on the newspaper, because that is not true. Nowhere in the law does it say we are gods. Nowhere. And you can't tell me Psalms. Psalms is not law. Law is how many books? Law is the instructions. Law where Yahweh says, do this, don't do this. Law is in Leviticus. Law is where he says, don't eat these, but eat these. Law says, this is clean, this is unclean. Don't tell me the law in Revelation 4 and 3 tells me, no, that's not the law. We have to be specific. We got to put, the whole purpose of the law is to have the walls, to have the lines, to have something that we can't go in and out of. But people will try to go out and say, well, I can pick up sticks on the Sabbath. Well, it says not to. That's what the guy got stoned for, according to that scripture, right? Now, if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find out more to that. But from scratching the surface, that's your starting point. Now, when you go out and mow your grass, cut down your trees, go out and eat, you're breaking the law. Whether you agree with it or not, according to Scripture, not to buy, sell, do anything ordinary, right? You're breaking the law. Even Christians know what the law is, but for some reason, our box goes whichever way our doctrine goes, right? If we're not careful, this is now Kool-Aid. That's a lie. This is water. It's water. Unless you add something to it, this is water, right? But the doctrine becomes, oh no, it's if we turn and put a little bit of stuff in it and we do this and we do that, now you have not made it water, right? If you take these verses and make them what they are not, that's a false doctrine. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, whether you think it's the Ruach or knowledge or whatever you think you got going on, that is a false doctrine. And that is what he warned against. And he said, have no other gods before me. Right? He also said, if an angel or anyone preach anything other than this gospel, they are accursed. So what you're not careful in doing, Jonathan Clegg and all these other people that want to follow him and agree with him, you're cursing yourself. That's all you're doing. You're cursing. You're bringing a curse to yourself. Will it happen tomorrow? Probably not. Will it happen next year? Might. Will it happen in a few years? Probably so. You're just grabbing the roof rafters and just saying, I want these to fall on my head because I'm so smart. I can take this. And everybody else, and there's a difference between something new, a revelation. A revelation is, hey, Saturday is the Sabbath. Hey, his name's really Yeshua. Hey, his name's really Yahweh. Hey, that's a revelation. But for you to say it's new, that's like falling away from, because, well, it was Jesus, now it's Yeshua, now can it be another name? Once you find the truth, it's the truth. It does not change. It does not waver, right? It's Yeshua. Yahweh saves. Yahweh is my salvation. And forevermore, it's going to be Yeshua. There is no more enlightening. There is no more revelation. There is no more truth than that. Right? You might find more in depth of what his name means and things of that nature, but it's not going to change. The truth is the truth. Black is black. You can call it purple all day long, and you convince yourself, well, it was really purple because back in this day and that, but it's always black. White is white, right? If you try to move those pillars, if you will, you're only deceiving yourself. You're only telling the enemy that you can be deceived, you will be deceived, and to a point you like being deceived. All right, so let's go here. What does that mean? We've went over judging through all these other verses. And most would agree, and you can get And you, Andrew Roth, you can get Sandy Bruce, you can get scholars, you can get people from Israel that will agree these words mean these things. Right? Judge is not judge. You can't blanket judge. You just can't, because it doesn't say that. It doesn't mean that. Because if we're going to go to that, then we have to go back to our first one, and that says punish. If we're going to go to the very first one we went over, then okay, it's punish. Okay, I said in the law, you're punishers. So now we have the right to stone people at will. No, we don't, do we? See, we got to make it fit. It has to fit, and not what we want it to say. It has to say what Yahweh wanted it to say. Right? So what is more fitting? We shall punish anybody we want. We can defend anybody we want. We can advocate for anybody we want. We want to entitle anybody we want. We can deal with renegade communication. Is that what he's saying? Well, you can write communication to everybody now. Or no, maybe you can have the responsibility for everybody. None of that really fits, does it? But when you take it to its original meaning, what? The G2316, it's a magistrate. A magistrate, a judge. Now, wait a minute. Where does it say that in the law then? Because, see, we have to make this fit according to Scripture, not according to what I want it to say. Right? Because, of course, people want to be a god. How many people in history wanted to be a god? How many people want to say and have godlike things about them? And if you're not careful, you'll start doing witchcraft and you'll think it's a godlike matter, but you're really performing witchcraft, right? You're really doing things of the enemy, but you think because you became a god and you realize you're a god, now you can do godly things. Don't make sense, right? Let's go to Genesis 40, 49 and 16. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. What? Wow, we just matched it. We just made it fit, did we not? It's not nothing new under the sun. This ain't the greatest revelation since time. This ain't the greatest thing that ever happened, right? It's not, because we find right here what? That he says, Dan will judge. Right in what? Genesis. Let's go to Exodus. We can agree that that's a part of the Scripture, right? We can agree that Exodus is a part of the first 5 books. Would make it in the instructions, correct? Exodus 2 and 14. And he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me, as thou killest the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Wow. What happened right here? Let's go to Exodus 18. Exodus 18 and 13. Right? See how simple it is when we put Scripture into what he tells us to go to. He says, look in the law, basically. Does he not? It's written in your law. Well, where would we look? Not in Revelations, not in Psalms, not in John. We can't do that. Where are we at? Exodus 18 and 22. And let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring into thee, but every small matter they shall judge. Whoa. We have a problem here, folks. We have a problem if we're not going to agree that this is what it is. So shall it be easier for thyself, and thou shalt bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and Elohim, or God, if you're a King James Version fan, command thee so, who's commanding you to? Elohim, right? Then thou shalt be able to endure, and all these people shall go to their place in shalom, in peace. I just proved to you right there that what he said is the truth. It doesn't change. It doesn't add. It doesn't come up with a doctrine. It doesn't take away. It doesn't make it different. It doesn't make anything out of line. It makes it perfectly what so saith Yahweh. What said Yeshua. Right? We can't take and say, well, look, it says I'm a God. Well, look, it says, because if it doesn't say that in the beginning, then something's wrong. Right? If it doesn't say it right there in the beginning, in where he said to look, the law, something's wrong with your doctrine. Something's amiss. You can't make something fit that doesn't fit. Taking a puzzle piece and trying to jam it in there, it might almost fit. But guess what? When you get it all together, that didn't fit there, and there's a missing piece here, and there's another piece here. Oh, if you switch them, now it fits. If you go to the law, you find out. Okay, we'd agree this too. Leviticus is a part of the law, right? It's one of the books of the five. It's one of them, right? Leviticus 19 and 15. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor show favoritism to the great. But you shall judge your neighbor in righteousness. Well, right there he's saying you're a judge, right? If you're called to judge, if you're doing the right thing, if you're supposed to be doing what he told you to do, if he sent you to do it. Deuteronomy 19 and 15. Uh-oh. One witness is not enough to convict anyone accused of any crime or offense they may have committed. So you're not a God, right? Because a God would truly say, hey, I don't need nothing or nobody. Right? But even Yahweh uses witnesses, right? See the mentality difference between I'm a God and I can do this and I can do that and I can be and act like a Pharaoh, or I'm a dust and to dust I shall return, and this makes it all fit and the rest of it don't make no sense to me because it doesn't work, right? And it doesn't matter how much you pray, it doesn't matter how much you believe, it doesn't even matter how much faith you have. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Right? One witness is not enough to convict anyone accused of any crime or offense they may have committed. A matter must be established by testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. No matter what you like, no matter what you see, no matter what happened, by 2 or 3 witnesses. Jeremiah 29:11. Plans to prosper you. That's only if you pray, you fast, and you talk to Yahweh, right? People, churchianity would tell you, oh, well, he's just going to prosper me. There's blessings, and I don't understand. I must be doing wrong, and because of my house and my car, and because of this and because of that, and I'm just doing it all wrong. Not necessarily. His ways of blessing us might be our health. It might be we're teaching others. It might be many different things than what we think we're supposed to be driving Ferraris and having mansions like Joel Osteen. A lot of people, Christianity in particular, will say, well, Joel Osteen's got it figured out. He's got the prosperity. He's got the wife. He's got the car. He's got the this. He got the person looking. He's got it all. Right? But what does the scripture say? If you gain the whole world and you lose your soul, paraphrasing, what's the point? What do you get? Which is better, 70 years of having it all or eternity? Genesis 6, 3, 2, and 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of angels, Elohim, saw that the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and that they took wives for themselves, of whom they chose. Right? So you're saying, again, you have to go against what the Scripture's teaching if you go against what the Scripture's teaching. Does that make sense? You can't go and say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be this, and I'm going to do that, because it does not fit. You have to go with what so saith Yahweh, right? Now, to most fundamental people, this is a no-brainer, right? This talking about whether you're a God or an angel or dust, most even Christians will agree that's an absurdity, right? It's something that just, what are we talking about? That don't even make sense. What you had to really stretch and reach to grab a doctrine like that, right? Because even the average brand new Torah keeper knows that Yahweh says what? He is a God. He is one. Right? There are those out there who think this is a major issue. In most cases, they think that in the garden, they fell from something. But that's another made-up thing. It does not say we fell to the garden. To me, and to Scripture, that's almost saying that we have a whole different life. We have a whole different thing. Something happened before. He's keeping a secret from us. To me, it's the same thing that the enemy was doing in the beginning. But did he not say, if you eat from this? But did he not say, twisting and turning scriptures to make them fit the way you want them to fit? And what does that sound like? Okay, we want to go to the game, and, you know, Mom don't want to let us go to the game. Well, you know why? Because your mom don't want you to have no fun. You know why? Because your mom just is a stick in the mud. You know why? Oh, Mom she never had no fun in her life, and she's a churchianity person, and she just believes in church, and she just, stick in the mud. She just don't know. You go to that ball game, you'll have fun. You go to that ball game, you can really do something nice, right? You go to that ball game, you can really have something neat go on. Maybe Mom looked at the weather and it's supposed to have a thunderstorm rolling in. Maybe there's lightning abounding. Maybe it's going to turn really bad and the game's going to be terrible. And it's probably going to get called. But your friend, your buddy, your pizzo is trying to tell you all the things that's wrong with your mom to convince you of what you could go do. And that's what the enemy's trying to do. The enemy's trying to twist and turn and say, well, you know what? If you can be a God, then, you know, what else is there? Well, you know, if you was really from the beginning, well, you know, if you was really a God before and now you fell in the body, and where does it say that? If you take a doctrine like this, you know, and if you know what I'm talking about, it's probably best you just don't even try to learn the ways of the heathen, the ways of the liars. But people like Jonathan Kleck are out there saying that he raises his hand and says he's a fallen angel. Fallen angels are demons, right? There's the angels and there's the fallen angels. And if you're a fallen angel, that means you're demonic. If you have a fallen angel in you, you have a demonic possession. This is just scripture. This is basically Hebrew 101:1. Or actually 0.1 probably. This is just the Bible. The scriptures in general. But when you start twisting and turning and saying, oh no, that's different. Oh no, it's something different. Oh no. Then basically you're only doing a few things. And you're going right from the beginning in Genesis and saying, well, you know what? In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. So now you're putting yourself on the level of Yahweh who created the heaven and the earth. Because people, they keep going. What's so terrible about these kind of strange demonic doctrines is they don't quit. They don't quit till they consume you. They don't quit until you're so into crazy town and you've offended Yahweh so bad that he's turning his back on you because you have basically said you are a God. Now, if you know anything about Scripture, you know we are created from dust. And dust we shall return. Anything other than these things are not of Yahweh. No matter what you say, no matter what spin you put on them, no matter what you do with it, you can't say, well, you know, I was there and I did this, because it doesn't say you was there. It doesn't even talk about us, right? Genesis 1 and 8. And Elohim called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Right? So when did he make us? What did he make us of? 1 and 14. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Right? I mean, we just can't go and do what we want to do and make it the way we want it to be. Because when we start doing that, what happens? You start having, again, doctrines of men, doctrines of demons. 1 and 26. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, created he them. Now, to say that this is bad, to say this is terrible, to say this is not a good thing, aren't you going against what he just said there? He made us, right? He made us of what? Dust. And he made us in his image. If we're not careful, we offend the Most High by saying we're something different than what he made. No matter what sin, no matter what happened, we are still made in the image of Yahweh, correct? If we're made in the image of Yahweh, who are we to call this anything other than great perfection? Because sin entered in, because of disobedience, there was a fall. But you have to understand, until sin was not the fall. The fall could not, you don't fall, right? It doesn't work that way. We was in the garden. We was made. We was put in the garden, and we didn't know sin. We didn't know death. For any of this other demon doctrine to work, where you fell from heaven into a fleshly body, you're saying this is untrue. You're saying what he says is not actual truth. That's what you have to be saying. To say your doctrine is saying you're a fallen angel and you fell into flesh, because this does not say that. You're making the scripture, you're changing, you're adding to, you're taking away from the very scriptures that Yahweh put down, that he breathed. And Yahweh and Elohim blessed them. And Elohim said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over everything that moveth upon the earth. And Elohim said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. There was no death there. There was no killing animals. There was no bloodshed there. And Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And evening and the morning were the sixth day. To you to bring anything other doctrine is a lie. To you to bring and change and add to and take away makes this null and void. You cannot make this null and void. You can clap and boo-boo and woo-woo and boy, I got the greatest. You're a liar. Jonathan Kleck is a liar. He's got a demon doctrine, and people that follow that junk are either confused or deceived. That's the only way to put it. There's no nice and sweeten it up. He says judge righteously. To judge righteously for anybody that says you got to change Genesis 1:31. You got to change Genesis 1. You got to rearrange the whole Genesis 1 chapter here of where it talks about men. Because Yahweh says we are made of flesh, out of dust. And he says we was very good. Nowhere did he say, I'm taking angels. Don't you think he's so specific that he says this is our food and this is what we will eat? This is clean, this is unclean. And he goes on Leviticus and even tells us what animals are clean, what animals are unclean, how to cleanse our bodies, when we're clean, by evening we're clean. It takes 7 days for this, the menstrual, all these things that he tells us. But oh, did he forget? Who are we to question Yahweh? Who are we to go and make Scripture something it's not? I'll tell you who you are. You're demonic. You're demon. You're demon-fed. You don't hear the voice of Yahweh. You're hearing Lucifer, the fallen one, the one who's taken what he's done and trying to apply it to you, and you're open arm hugging him. You're saying you're a part of Lucifer's crowd. You may be. You may be a follower of Lucifer. You may think he's grand and awesome. But this says, in the beginning, Yahweh made man and woman out of the dust of the ground. And because of our falling, because of our sin, because of what we have done, we will return to that dust. Right? But he says here in 131, it was very good. He doesn't say, well, I took these fallen angels, stuffed them in some meat popsicles, and oh, looky what I did. But you know what? They're just old silly meat popsicles. And that's a doctrine of demons. Don't fall for Crazyville. Don't get on the crazy train. If the doctrine doesn't seem right, we shouldn't even be, 6 years it took me to get. If it took you 6 years to get to this, you're probably wrong. You probably had to add to, take away, make it fit. Correct? Because the Sabbath is the Sabbath. The full moon is the full moon. The clean is clean, unclean is unclean. Now, whether you want to abide by it, if you want to eat honey and say honey is this, but you know good and well that bees and wasps are not a clean thing. Insects, those insects are unclean. We know it because they walk upon what? They walk upon all four. They walk upon, we can discern and we can talk and we should be able to sit down and say this is either right or this is wrong. And it's never going to change. Never, ever is that going to change. Genesis 1 and 31 is never going to change. Is it? Is it going to go back and be redone? Is Yahweh going to bring us back and back up time and redo it? No. So if we know that cannot change, it will not change, and it ain't like you can dig something out of that. He says, it was good. It was very good. So what you're doing there, if you're not very careful, you're trying to tempt. You're trying to go against. You're trying to listen to the enemy. And then what happens? So before we close up, let's go to Genesis 2 and 16. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Genesis 2 and 17. Where did we go wrong? We disobeyed. Was it the fruit? Was it this? It was we disobeyed. It doesn't matter if it's pig. It doesn't matter if it's chicken. It doesn't matter if it's honey. It doesn't matter if he told you to do this and not do that. Disobedience is disobedience, folks. He said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And most, I would say most, 90 to 99% of people listening to this don't even need to worry about these strange doctrines. Most of it's right here daily taking care of what you need to do. Should I shave my beard? No, because it says not to mar it. Well, should I shave my head? No, because it says not to round the corners of my head. See, we have enough battles daily that the enemy's trying to tell you stuff, and you need to go to Scripture and correctly, rightly judge Scripture. And another bad demon doctrine is, nobody tells me anything. I read the Bible for myself. That is not Scripture. Why did Yeshua have disciples? What did Yeshua tell people? If that's true, the Pharisees could have turned to him and said, you know what? We've read the